Well, hello, friends. Yes, it's me. And it's time once more for a story, a neckbeard tale. But not just any neckbeard tale, oh no. This is from Reddit user Erotius. Yes, that one. You remember the last time we read some of their stories, and now it's time for Vampire Beard, the Masochism, Part 1, Introductions and Invitations. Feels like an instructional video title. Welcome to Vampire Beard. You will learn how to instruct, how to invite. Either way, I'm excited for this. Let's read it. This is Eru, coming to you with more neckbeard stories. I'm excited. Big shout out to our Lord and Master, the very talented Redex, for reading my various tales of beardery. He's a peach of a man, and we are unworthy of him. And you didn't even mention me once. I'm cut to the bone, and now I refuse to read the rest of this story. How dare you, sir? I'm kidding. Redex is a lovely person. I'm totally going to read the rest of this. Okay. Our cast for this little tale. Eru, returning OP, new to Georgia at the time, looking for friends and starting fresh. A self-professed recovering neckbeard who's trying to do better and trying to leave his beardery past behind. M, roommate, neckbeard, WoW aficionado. You love him, you hate him, and at this point, he's still my brother, my buddy, and my best friend. Vampire Beard, creature of the night, seductive ladies' man, definitely a nice guy, certainly a weeb, absolutely a beard, but probably the best beard I've ever known. Works with M at his new job, and is yet another beard that this beard magnet has brought home. Small disclaimer, the story happens before the events of the Georgia Beard Chronicles. We met Georgia Beard about 8 months to a year after we moved to Georgia. Vampire Beard befriended us about a week after M started his job at the deli for a well-known retail chain. Yes, Fallbart. There is some overlap, but for the moment, VB was the only beard in our life. And now, with no more ado, I present to you Vampire Beard. So, Em and I had moved to Georgia from Florida. We got some looks as we set up our joint nest, our stuff being a combination of all of his gaming stuff, my swords and firearms, and a combined collection of books and furniture. There were no illusions made about what we were and what we stood for. We were nerds, we were gamers, we were proud of it. So we set up our stuff, got our affairs in order, and within 2 weeks we were officially residents of Georgia. Now, I had come down 3 months earlier to scout the lay of the land and make arrangements for housing. M was leaving the safety net of his family for the first time, and I wanted his first trip into the real world to be as painless as possible. Guy was like my brother, and I really wanted to pull him out of his comfort zone and shake him up a little. If you read the Georgia Beard stuff, then you know I was pretty successful. I did, and I do. So after about 2 weeks, M tells me he's got a job. That's great, where'd you get hired? Oh, the deli at this retail chain. Sounds kind of fun until something else comes along. I was glad for him. My own job was pretty good. Think a week off and a week after, where you work 6 12-hour shifts in a row, followed by a week of 1 to 2 shifts, rinse repeat. I was glad that he was going to start paying his own bills. His savings were starting to get low, and I knew that that would be a huge burden off of him. So, he starts up. For about 2 weeks, all is quiet. He tells me about some of his coworkers, some of the cool people who work there, but most of his stories center around this guy who we met, whom we shall call Vampire Beard. He's pretty wild. He wears contacts and makes his eyes look like cats, dresses like someone at a Ren fair when he's off the clock, and he pulls down so many fucking chicks. Yeah? He sounds like an interesting guy. Plus, he's totally into video games and D&D. I told him we played, and he wants to know if you DM a game for him and his friends. I had been trying to find a group again, so I agreed, after I met him, of course. So the next night, Em and I had the day off, so he invites Vampire Beard over for a visit. Vampire Beard's car is in the shop, apparently, so Em went to pick him up. I'm sitting on the couch playing some Fallout 3 when Em comes in, talking to someone. I pause my game and look at the door, wanting to be polite. The sight of Vampire Beard was so jarring that I thought for a moment I was hallucinating. He was dressed like someone going to a Ren fair, if the Ren fair was also set in a fantasy convention. I'll do my best to describe him, but honestly, I'm probably not going to do him justice. He had on leather boots with buckles at the top. They were long and stopped at his knee, and they had either been bought like this or he had done it himself. They looked worn and salt-stained, like boots that had seen use by the sea. Honestly, they just came off as old-looking, but knowing VB, I'm sure it's part of his aesthetic. He's wearing those baggy Ren Fair pants you usually see cosplayers wear, black and billowy with a drawstring, and he had a black Jerry Seinfeld shirt with honest-to-God ruffle in the front. He had a long coat with tails and a collar, and it made the duster I sometimes wore look drab by comparison. It was cold in Georgia, so it was less for my usual neckbeard style, and more for not wanting to be cold on those days. I was recovering, you'll remember, from being a beard. Some habits die hard. Look, clothes don't make you a beard, everybody knows that. He had more chains than a Hot Topic accessories cabinet, and some of them were clearly homemade. Vials of water, pouches of ashes, an animal foot, some kind hung off of a few. There was a bone hanging from a silver chain that we later found out was an honest-to-God possum penis bone. Why? He said this proudly and told us it was to increase his sexual vigor. He wore a red bandana over his curly black hair, completing his pirate costume, and his eyes were electric blue and cat-slitted. He had custom contacts which served no purpose beyond making his eyes look weird. When he smiled, you could see a pair of vampire fangs, the kind you mold your teeth to with dental putty so they stay in. He was not fat. I could have probably picked him up and carried him with very little issue. And his complexion made me think that he was Hispanic, perhaps, though it turned out his father was white and his mother was from the Philippines. Honestly, he kind of sounds like a fancier version of King Cobra. So, okay, I'm into this. He stopped in our doorway and was looking at Em and I quizzically. What's wrong? I must be extended an invitation. Don't you know anything about vampires? I can't enter your domicile unless you have invited me in over your threshold. Oh, Lord. He roleplays. I looked at him, giving him a long practice look that said, "Is this dude for real?" Oh, right, I invite you into my household. I was a practitioner of paganism and decided to flex a little on this. On the grounds that you do no harm to those who live here and act under the auspices that your invitation may be revoked upon the breaking of such tenets. I only mention that because it turned out to be a huge mistake on my part. Ah, a fellow practitioner of the arts, I see. Em, you failed to mention that your roommate was of my ilk. Yeah, Arrow thinks he's a witch or something. He's got all that Hogwarts crap in his room. Maybe he'll show it to you or something. I was a little miffed, but Em pretty much hit the nail on the head. I was a delusional Potter boy. I don't say that other word. And Em's atheism made him roll his eyes at such a thing. In hindsight, it was kind of dumb. But it was what I did, and I don't regret it too much. I met a lot of cool people and did a lot of cool things while I traveled those circles, some of which I might even tell you about, some of which involved the beard in question. Vampire Beard shook my hand, meaning that he could sense a strong aura about me. And I was pretty okay with the guy after meeting him. Initial reaction was that he was a little weird, but no weirder than I was. I was more okay with the food he went back to get out of Em's car, and he set about cooking dinner for us as we chatted. Now, VB was a good cook. He did a lot of pasta and stews and things that Em and I both enjoyed. Now that's how you win someone over. He was also a tea snob, which worked for me because I like teas as well. Vampire Beard, as I've said, was not a traditional neckbeard. He had some tendencies. Tendencies? Ah, I see what you did there. Such as liking anime, video games, fantasy, and held some neckbeard ideas as such that women should be protected and cherished, but they were ultimately irrational creatures who couldn't function on their own. He wore fedoras sometimes, but usually stuck with a bandana because it fit his pirate aesthetic. I'd seen him wear gloves, but their fingerlessness was secondary next to the fact that they were pretty thick and had a cuff. He owned swords and knives and was heavily into the occult, proclaiming himself to be a spirit caller and urban shaman. Whatever that is. Should ask him if he knows about Cobra Craft wands. On the reverse, he was fastidious in his cleanliness. When he lived with us, a story for later, He would sometimes shower 3 times a day. He used my bathroom, usually, saying that M was kind of a slob, and I never minded because his shower caddy was organized and his things were never in the way. He smelled nice, his hair was always washed, his living space was always clean, and his clothes were always organized. He would talk at length about the women he seduced, and M would often nod and agree. Phoebe gets tail, and he would say the hijinks that he would get up to, sometimes even on the clock, were impressive to a guy in his early 20s who struggled to attract women at all. Mostly, he was confident, and we weren't, so we were impressed by him. As we ate, Vivi explained he could do this because he was a daywalker and a psychic vampire. I just realized I was doing air quotes, and you can't see me. So he could take nourishment from regular food as well. Vivi talked about himself. We listened politely. He made ravioli from scratch in a thick Alfredo sauce with sausage chunks as big as your thumbnail, so he could have talked about how he fucked roadkill for all I care, and when we finished, he asked what sort of D&D material I had. Well, this was my time to shine, as I pride myself on my collection of AD&D and 3.0 to 3.5 sourcebooks. That was the most recent at the time. He nodded and grinned at my selection of books and asked if we had a group yet. We said that we didn't, and he asked if we'd like to. I play with a small local coven, nothing too serious. But as a long-time GM, I would love to take a break and play a character of my personal design. Ib says you're a spectacular GM, Eru. Would you care to run the game for us? Sure, dude. How many people we talking? Oh, no more than 6. It's a small coven. 4 members, myself, and him, of course, if he'd like to play. Hell yeah. I haven't rolled dice in a while. Good, then it's settled. You can come by my abode 5 nights hence. I'll make some food and brew some tea, and you can meet the others. I'm sure there are a couple who would cast eye favorably upon you two. You get to go hang out with the goth kids. Are you excited? It's gonna get weird.
If you want to be one of the nonconformists, all you have to do is dress just like us and listen to the same music we do.
He said that last bit with a wink. Oh, I'm sure. I have added no inflection or pomp in his speech, by the way. That is how he talked while he was in character, I imagine. Which seemed to be whenever he was dressed like a vampire pirate. We hung out a little more. He wanted to see my altar, my library. My bedroom was kind of just bookshelves, a desk, and a bed. And I think we played some board games too before he had him take him home. He said his car would be out of the shop by the time we came to play and wished me a fine evening. This was my first encounter with Vampire Beard, and I was honestly not unimpressed. The dude was polite. He didn't shit all over our taste in music or reading material. We've had friends that would. I think everybody knows people like that. And it was kind of nice to have someone to talk shop with. I was excited for the game group and started retooling one of my old homebrews for 6 people. The thought of meeting 4 other practitioners, some of them even women by the sound of it, was also enticing, and I was looking forward to this weekend. This would prove to be the beginning of a long epic for Em and I. For we could not know the Twilight-style horror, the Anne Rice fuckery, the Bram Stoker bullshittery of befriending this vampire man-child and suffering his shenanigans. Did I mention I like your way with words? Will Em and Eru survive their trip to the vampire's lair? Will Vampire Beard's dark nature turn out to be something you could cure with medication? Will his coven sacrifice OP and his, as of yet, unshitty roommate to their dark god? Tune in for the next installment of Vampire Beard, The Masochism, Part 2, The Endless D&D Night. Until next time, this is Eru coming to you from my fortified bunker in the Florida Panhandle, bringing you the truth no matter how beardy it is. First off, I question how you have a bunker in the Florida Panhandle. It's Florida. Everything down there is just horrible. I say that as having been there myself. And I also live in the South, so don't judge me. But, this is going to be a fantastic tale. I can tell already. We get to talk about some things that I absolutely love and never get to talk about. Kids, let's talk about the combination of neckbeards and goth. We don't really get to go over this a lot, but it is a thing. Now, there are a few, and granted, Vampire Beard does not sound like nearly some of the ones that I used to know. You know, the kind who have a lot of the same neckbeard tendencies, but are also really into the whole goth aesthetic. Let's just say that the trench coats were always a thing. It's just they didn't wash theirs. Vampire Beard sounds like he's one of those really, really into his roleplay kind of thing. Has a very specific character, has a very specific idea. I imagine a lot of his clothing probably fits this specific character aesthetic, and he does this kind of thing a lot. People who get really, really into their characters tend to do that, especially the whole vampire thing. Oh, God. Years ago, I used to know a bunch of vampires, and whether or not they're real, I'll leave that up to you, but they can be trying, shall we say. It's difficult to hang out with people like that who are incredibly knowledgeable and they know all these things and they're so full of all this information, and yet at the same time you have to explain to these people that sometimes you have to clean out the fucking refrigerator, okay? You can't just leave shit like that. I realize that you're 1,000-year-old or whatever, but Arm & Hammer exists for a reason. Now scrub the motherfucker. It's a whole thing, believe me. I really don't understand where a lot of their mentality comes from, though I have been witness to it a lot. And I had my own goth phase when I was in my early 20s, though thankfully I was clean like this person, not like some of the neckbeards I knew. So, I look forward to hearing more about this. I truly do. I think this will be absolutely fantastic. And when it comes to his weird character and his style of dress and things like that, like I said, I had my own goth phase, and I can't judge Vampire Beard too hard because some of that stuff is really interesting. Some of that stuff is really cool. And I challenge you this, OP, Eru. I will challenge you this. And this goes for a lot of you. If you've never owned a pair of those Ren Fair style pants, don't judge. They are the single most comfortable thing I've ever worn, and I call them my lazy pants. And I have a pair, yes. I have several pairs of horrible lazy pants, but they are shockingly comfortable, believe me. The shirts are as well, but I wouldn't go the full chest ruffle. That's not my thing. I think they're specifically referred to as like peasant-style shirts. It's basically like figuring out you can wear pajamas everywhere and still not look like you're wearing pajamas. Let's put it that way. There's a reason why that's a thing with a lot of people, and it is really comfortable. Though I can imagine it's not something for everybody, and it doesn't work for everybody. But the boot thing is a different thing. Personally, I like combats. So, yeah, certain habits from that time that I had stick around. I don't do the, particular levels of jewelry anymore. Now I kind of look like your uncle who's gotten really into vaporwave and old computers. Except I still wear combat boots, but now they have rainbow laces. That's not even a joke, they actually do. But I am excited for the rest of this. I have no idea what we're going to walk into with this, but I'm excited to know about the Coven. Especially because he keeps referring to them as that. Not a group, but a coven. Oh. Sling some spells, bitches. Here we go. Oh, my lord. I'm excited. But with all that being said, that's the end of this video. So thank you for being here. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that other YouTube shit. I don't know, man. I have a Ko-Fi and a merch store. Those keep the lights on in here if you'd like to help out, and I would certainly appreciate it. But if you can't, I understand. Live streams are every Saturday, and yes, they are back. I have a Discord, but more importantly, I have a subreddit where you can send me your own stories. And not just neckbeard stories, though I do tend to cover those a lot. I also enjoy everyone's strange tales of any kind. Send me your weird, send me your awkward phase stories. We all had one. Tell me about when you were in your teenage years or your 20s where you were the goth emo kid. I will relate and enjoy them quite a lot, I promise you. So, I have no idea why there are people driving up and down my road with their loud-ass trucks. Either way, thank you all for being here. This was a fantastic tale, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.